Hello Space Engineers, Wellington6012 here, and welcome back to episode number 2 of my tutorial series. How's everybody today? Hope you are good. So yeah, you find me where you left me last time, and pretty much when as well. Haven't done anything to speak of. We will get to work on this respawn pod and yeah, rework some things and do some stuff. But first of all, it's raining. It's raining, so let's just talk about weather. So weather is one of the options that we do have in the game. So to change the settings in your game save, we need to go to the main menu screen and load game. And then we need to select the game save that we want to change. I've just got the one here today, but normally the list would be of all your game saves, and edit the settings. So here is just a basic screen, and if we wanted to add mods to our save, this is where we would do it. We've just got the one here at the moment. And over here is our advanced settings. So this is pretty much the same screen as what we had when we first set up our game world. There are a couple of things missing, and I think there might be a couple of extra things as well. But if we go right down the bottom here, here is our weather system option that we can turn on or off. It's personal preference whether you want to have the weather system. For the most part, it's cinematic. However, there are some challenges or annoyances, depending on your point of view, of having the weather system. One is that there are certain weather types like fog, storms, dust storms that can affect your visibility. So potentially you might get sort of a little bit lost or it might crash if you're flying. There is also when you get fog that reduces the wind speed. So your wind turbines can reduce output. The other side of the coin is in storms it increases output. So there's pros and cons to that. If you do decide to have the weather system, there is this option here to turn on and off the lightning damage. It is a recent addition to the game. Prior to that, pretty much most people would actually install a mod that disabled lightning damage. The reason for that is the lightning damage game mechanic is not a good thing in Space Engineers. It really does not work that well. It can be quite cool, it can be a little bit of excitement, a little bit of challenge when you're in the midst of a storm and you're getting struck by things, but for the most part, lightning damage just randomly comes out of nowhere and you're quite happily going along doing whatever you're doing and you'll suddenly just get injured or your grid will just take random damage. Oh, what did that hit? My survival kit? So as far as I'm concerned, lightning is broken and I will not be having that switched on. And for the tutorial series, I will be switching off the weather. This is mainly for continuity reasons when I'm trying to do the edit, just the way that I'm making this series. So that'll be switched off. So we'll press OK to confirm that and OK again. So that's now changed. We'll go back into the game and deal with the rain that's currently there. Okay, so even though we've turned off the weather in the settings, it's still raining here. So we could wait for the rain to disappear because it will eventually go away. Otherwise, we can do a little bit of a cheat and go into the admin menu. So as a reminder, that's Alt F10. That brings up our admin screen. And we've got a drop down here. We can go to weather. And you can see here we can either add different weather or we can remove the current stuff. So there we go. Blue skies, that's much better. Now, conveniently, coincidentally, the sun is actually just going down at the moment. So we'll just stay on the theme of sort of meteorological effects and just talk about the day-night cycle, because that is another setting that we can change in the game settings. So if I go back into that screen, so back here in the settings, we can turn on and off the day-night cycle by enabling the sun rotation. So if we turn it off, that's quite useful when we're up in space and not really dealing with planets because it keeps the sun in the same place. But when you're on planets, it's quite nice, I think, to have the day-night cycle turned on. Because even though it's nice to be all in the sun all the time, if you're actually traveling around the planet, that means if you go to the other side of the planet, you're going to be in night all of the time, you know, dark side of the moon type stuff. So the default length is 2 hours. To me, that always feels a bit too short. Because you can see the sun move and it feels like it's always coming up or always going down. I feel a good time frame is 4 hours. Gives a good day length and you can't really see the sun moving, but you do get that regular cycle. You can go all the way up to 1 full day. And that's actually quite good is if you want to sort of keep the sun in the same place, but have the ability to move it, because if I disable the sun rotation, we can't actually adjust this, and I'll show you another slider that you can change the time of day in a second. So yeah, if you want to keep the sun sort of in one place, but have the ability to move it, then you can set it for a full day. That's what I'm actually going to do here, again for editing and continuity purposes. I'm going to go with that one day. So I'll jump back in the game. Okay, back in the game, and it seems to be the middle of the night. It's as though somebody has been mucking around with the day-night cycle. We'll go into the admin menu again, and down the bottom here we've got this slider, which we can adjust the position of the sun. This is available to us when we do have the rotation turned on, even if it's 24 hours. If we turned off the rotation, this would not be available to us. So we'll just escape out of there. It's a little bit cheaty, but I'm going to keep that sort of high in the sky above us most of the time for the series, just so we can sort of see what we're doing, because for the purposes of learning, I don't think the day-night cycle is really important to us. So yeah, we'll move on to the respawn pod now, and just before I sort of start doing some building and repurposing of some of the materials, I wanted to really just talk about the progression system, and also just some of the bottlenecks that we're going to come up to, because we're going to have to start making some decisions about what we're going to build and how we're going to build and sort of what we're going to do. And that's based on some of the resources and things that we're going to need to do, but we're going to need to get other resources and do other things in order to get those ones. So it's kind of a bit of a chicken and the egg situation at the moment. So I'll start off with progression. That is one of the options that's available when you set up the game and subsequently in the game settings. So we'll look at how it works by going into the toolbar configuration by pressing the G key, and that brings us into the block screen. We do have quite a few blocks already available to us. Most of these are fairly basic, and in fact a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them we can build using materials that we can produce in the survival kit. There are some here which do actually have an icon. So what that icon means is that this block is part of a downloadable content pack, a DLC. And in those DLCs, in those updates, usually there's sort of two parts to it. One is it's got free blocks that are available to everybody and comes as part of an automatic update. But then there are also other blocks that you need to purchase the DLC to get access to. So it may be that unless you've purchased that DLC, you might not have access to all the blocks. Looking further down the list, we've also got a whole group of conveyors here. And the reason why we've got those is that we've actually already unlocked them. Remember in episode 1 we built a medium cargo container, and that unlocked the conveyors. So normally in a new start game this group of blocks would not be here, so we have already unlocked those. So how the progression works is if we go to the progression tab, we have a handful of blocks that we can build that will unlock other blocks. So one of them is an assembler. So when we build an assembler, we will then unlock these blocks here. So we've got sort of a lighting group. This is an advanced assembler, and there's some things that go with that. We've also got some other blocks, including batteries. So for us, building an assembler is a bit of a bottleneck because it does take quite a few materials to build. There's lots of steel and lots of computers there. So we do sort of need to decide when we're going to do it. It may be that we do other things first. But once we unlock the assembler, it's going to unlock a whole lot of things. This sort of whole category here is sort of a more general block category. As I say, we've only got a handful of blocks we can actually unlock at the moment. If we go further down the list, we've sort of got one for each category type, which this interior plate's interior wall unlocks sort of a decorative group. You can see there's going to be a lot of blocks coming out of that. This refinery is kind of your sort of resource gathering group. Then we've got the landing gear that takes care of the vehicle category. These are oxygen hydrogen generators, and so we'll get sort of gas blocks out of that. Here we call it the logistics group, so we've already started unlocking that one. And finally we've got the power production group. So for a new player, I would suggest that you do have progression turned on. And the reason why I say that is that it is quite a good way to learn the blocks and learn where they are in the toolbar and sort of how they interact or how they mix with other blocks. Also, they do get introduced to you kind of at the right time. And what I mean by that is that there are some blocks that there are more advanced versions or bigger versions. And it might be that actually, if you have progression turned off, you get access to that more advanced block sooner, and you build it when actually the more basic one was a better option at the time. So all that said, for new players I would suggest it, but pretty quickly once you get some experience and once you understand how the blocks work and where they are, progression does become more of a unnecessary thing, and you'll find when you start new games you probably won't have it and don't need it. Unless of course you're doing a specific challenge like a speed run or something like that where it's going to be part of the challenge unlocking blocks. But yeah, so that's how progression works. Alright, so we're faced with a little bit of a fork in the road. We need to make some decisions about how we're going to proceed and sort of what path we're going to take. So one of the options is to stay where we are and build an assembler. So that would be the main thing, and also a wind turbine to power it. It does take a few components. So we would need to drill more stone, hand drill more stone, and process that in the survival kit. Whatever decision we make, that's an inevitability at this part of the game, is that we're going to do some hand drilling. It's going to be a bit of a grind, but that's just how it is. So yeah, we can stay here, but we will need to go out and find sort of more resources. So whether here is the best location to build that basic base, or whether we can actually make this respawn pod airworthy and go and find somewhere else is an option. Also, if we were to build an assembler, then the assembler, even just providing it with the resources that you get out of stone, being iron, nickel, and silicon, we could build, first of all, a battery. Because currently we can't make any power cells in the survival kit, we need an assembler. But if we had an assembler with stone processed into various resources, we would be able to make a battery. We could also make wheels. So going into here, if we go into the progression, down here, once we unlock them, wheels, they only need motors and tubes, so all things that are based on iron and nickel. So we could certainly do that, and then we could head out and we could find more resources. If we want to get airborne using atmospheric thrusters, we're going to need steel tubes, which we can produce using iron in an assembler, and we're also going to need metal grids. Now metal grids require cobalt, and we would need to refine that cobalt in a refinery. So we kind of need to be able to fix our respawn pod or build a rover to go out and find the cobalt in order to come back and fix our respawn pod. So this is what I mean by chicken and the egg. However, there are actually materials in this respawn pod that we can get it flight worthy just by repurposing some of the blocks that we're not using. So that's the option that I'm going to take today, and we'll start building this momentarily, but it's going to be up to you what you want to do, because I just feel like this valley is a very nice valley, but I don't have any resources immediately sort of around me or under me, and if I was to build a rover, it's not very conducive to rover sort of terrain. So I think my best option at this stage is to make this respawn pod airworthy by repurposing some of the blocks in there, and we'll get out of this valley and we'll find somewhere nice and relatively flat and accessible, maybe next to a lake, so we've got access to ice, and from there we can then build a sort of starter base. You still need to do all this stuff, it's just what order you do it in. So that's what I'm going to do, and yeah, so we'll get started. I'm just going to tidy up some of the sort of blocks on this just so we get some better access to things. Okay, so I've just ground some of the blocks off the front there, just partly to give us more access, partly to see, and also so we've got some more steel. So that'll save us doing a bit of stone mining and processing. So what we need to do now is we need to unlock some of these control blocks, especially for vehicles, because this basically at the moment is just a drop pod. It just falls out of the sky. When it gets close to the ground, a parachute will deploy so it doesn't crash land. But yeah, I can't control this. It doesn't have any control systems, so we need to install some of those blocks. So let's just go into the toolbar menu again and progression, see what we needed, which I think was a landing gear if I recall rightly. Sure enough, landing gear, we need to make one of those. I've already got one down here on my toolbar, so I don't need to add it, but I don't even need to actually make a new one. All I need to do is just, with my grinder, grind this one below the function line, and then re-weld it above, and that will be the same as placing a new one. And you can see there it says by building a landing gear I've unlocked new blocks. So going back into progression, we can see that now we have access to a whole lot of things. We've got wheels, we've got some seats, and we've got cockpits, control seats, and there's a remote control. So those are sort of the key ones. The seat that's in here is just a seat. So again, it's not able to control anything. This was just a drop pod to start with. So we're going to need to replace that or have another option. So in here, if we go into the progression, we've got several cockpits that we can choose from. And the basic one here has a little cross on it. And what that means is that this has a group. There's several variants of cockpit, and this is the one that you put in your toolbar to give you the group. Over here we have what's in that group of variants, and you can see there's only two and some that are NA. So this is large grid versions. There's only two available in the large grid, and you know it's large grid because it's got this little or big box selected. If we were to click on the small grid icon, then we get to see all the small grid variants, and there's 5 of those. Okay, so if we grab that icon and we drag it down onto our toolbar, we'll just replace the cargo pod because I don't think we're going to do one of those for a little while. And then, so that's our available cockpits. There's just a simple one, which does require some steel tubes, motors, things like that, all of which we can make in a survival kit. We can't make the glass though. We need an assembler for that. With this particular cockpit, I don't think you actually need the glass. Normally there would be a function line where anything above that function line is kind of optional. It doesn't in this case, but I'm pretty sure that you can just build this without the glass and you can still use it. We can use the mouse wheel to scroll through the other options. And here we have one that requires metal grids, so that's out of the question at the moment because we don't have the assembler, refinery or cobalt. Same with this one, and we're back to sort of the start. Even though there's not many components required for this, I'm actually going to go with a different option. So again, I'll go back into the G menu and the toolbar configuration, and I'm going to go with the remote control. Because the remote control only needs a couple of interior plates, construction component, a motor, and a computer. So not much stuff at all. We've already got a seat to sit in. The remote controls are just what they say on the box. They're a control that you can remotely get into. We'll talk about that when we actually do it. But there is a certain direction, a certain orientation that we need to put this remote control. And you can see if I rotate it around to the front, we've sort of got a light type thing on the front. It looks like a camera, but it's not. But yeah, that needs to face forward. And we can see on the bottom there's actually an arrow that points forward. And if we look on top, there's a pair of arrows that point forward. How am I turning this block? How am I twisting it, getting the correct orientation? I'm using the set of keys which has got insert, home, delete, end, page up, page down to manipulate that block. If you want to see on screen exactly what keys I'm talking about, we'll just press escape to go into the game options. We don't need to get out of the actual save, we can just go into this options up here, and we'll go into the game and we'll click on show rotation hints and OK, and we'll escape back into the game. And now up in the top corner we've got this option that we can sort of see where things are, how to orientate things properly, and gives you what key that you're using. Okay, so that's quite a good option. We'll leave that up for a little bit longer while we're doing stuff here, and it'll probably come in quite useful. So I'll try and put this in position. Can't do it because I need some interior plate. So let's just go around here and go into the production screen, and we'll make some interior plate. In fact, to save keep coming back here and adding stuff, I'm just going to queue up a few bits and pieces. So we'll do some interior plate, because we're going to need them anyway. Some construction component. I'll do some computers, also some displays, and some motors. Now I do have enough resource to build all of those. The only thing that's showing red is stone, and that's because I completely overfilled the required list, so that whenever I put stone in, I just don't need to worry about it. It's always going to process. But we have enough iron, we have enough silicon, we have enough nickel. I did, between episodes, so after episode 1 and before episode 2, do a few loads of stone and had that processed just to get ahead of things, so that was already in there. So I did do that off camera. So we'll just let that process, and then we'll get into building some stuff. Okay, so that is them done. Fantastic. I'm just going to transfer them all over into my backpack so I don't have to keep coming back here. I will talk about inventories and how to access them probably next episode, more in depth. So just, yeah, bear with me on that one. Right, so let's now look at pasting or putting in that remote. So we'll have that facing forward. There we go. And now we should have the parts to completely do that. Now, remotes and cockpits, if we made one of those, yes, we did unlock new blocks. So let's have a look at what we unlocked. And what we unlocked was the various thrusters, some weapons, and importantly, a gyroscope. So gyroscope is what we want now, so we'll put that in instead of the remote control. Now, a gyroscope allows us to control the direction, the pitch, the angle of this of a ship, because at the moment, as I say, it's just a drop pod. It just drops straight down. With combined with the remote control or a cockpit, using this automatically, it'll use this gyroscope to actually control the direction. So we can paste it down anywhere. It does have a forward and back and up and down. If you were sort of using a manual type version, we won't be doing that. We'll definitely let the computer run it. So yeah, we can just put that in place and we'll weld that up. And oh dear, we are missing a part. We require a large steel tube to complete this. So where are we going to find one of those? So there is one here in the atmospheric thruster. So we could get one out of there, because realistically this pod only needs 2 or 3 thrusters. There's enough thrust in those to get it off the ground. We could not have one. I'm not going to do that because I happen to know where there is some steel tubes that are not really being used at the moment. I'll go and open my drill, and I'm just going to destroy, right click drill to destroy some voxel to get underneath, and there we have a hydrogen thruster, and that hydrogen thruster has 2 large steel tubes and 4 metal grids. So at this stage, that is absolute gold to us. So I think that is going to be better in my inventory as components rather than on the bottom of the respawn pod as a thruster. That thruster is really for getting into space, and that is something that I'm not intending on doing right this second. So I think we're better off using it. And yeah, so now we can complete that gyroscope. Awesome. So we're able to control the ship via the remote control. The gyroscope's going to give us control of it so that we can turn it and pitch it and angle it. We've got the thrusters which will get us off the ground, but we do need some directional thrust to help maintain that control. So what we're talking about is left and right to stop that drift, and forward and back for acceleration and braking. We can do a certain amount of sort of vector thrust by tilting back and that sort of thing, but if we can, we'll try and get some thrusters in each of those axes. So yeah, if we go into our progression or our blocks that do, we'll grab the atmospheric thruster group and we'll put it in where the gyroscope was, because we don't need that. So our first option is quite a large one, and yeah, it needs 90 motors. That's going to take a while to process through the survival kit, and a lot of stone I'm going to have to dig, so straight away that's out of the question. Plus the metal grids and steel tubes we don't have. So we'll just use the mouse wheel and scroll to the next one, which is the same thruster as what we've got already. So this is definitely a good option, and up until recently was probably our only option, to put a couple of these up top or underneath to give us some directional control. It does need 18 motors, so that's quite a few, so we're going to have to do some digging of stone. But I say this was our only option. Now we have another option, because there was a recent update which gives us these flat atmospheric thrusters. Now this is a large one, which is more powerful than the thruster that we've got on the drop pod currently, but less powerful than the large one that we first looked at. If I keep scrolling, there's just another variant of it, but then we've got this small one here. And this small one is going to be perfect for what we're doing today. The reason is that it's only going to take 6 motors, so it's going to be quicker for us to put in. And it only just gives us a little bit of thrust. We don't need a lot. We're just trying to sort of keep the thing stable, stop it from drifting. But yeah, this will just be perfect. It's going to be efficient given the lack of resources we have at the moment, but it's also going to just do the job for us. So what we'll do is we'll jump up on top. I'm using my jetpack, which again I'm not going to explain today. I will cover that off in a future episode. So yeah, we just need to make some room for these thrusters. So I'm going to just grind out some of these sort of sections here. So we've got this one here, and we'll get rid of that block. And yeah, I'll kind of do the same over here. And then I'll do the same at the back and on the side in a second. So yeah, just looking at these, they do have a front and back, or up and down. Where the sort of the nozzle sticks out, that's where the thrust is going to come from. So we want to make sure that that is facing away from any blocks, and that way it will enable us to, yeah, I mean the blocks won't get damaged then, so you really want that in clean air. This front one I think that I'm going to weld up completely, because I do have all the parts that I need for that, and that way it will give us sort of, it'll stop us, it'll arrest our forward momentum, so that'll be quite useful. The next priority is probably going to be one of these side ones here, but I'll just grind out the rest of the room. Yeah, I'll just grind out the space here, and then we can go from there. Right, and there's the fourth one. So I'll weld that up. So we're still missing some parts there. We're missing motors and steel tube. But importantly, each of these does have a metal grid. So let's just jump off the back here, I think. And we will produce some more motors. I can't remember how many I needed, but we'll just put 20 in for now, which we can more or less make. We will need to once more stone in a sec. But we do need to find some more steel tubes. So we do have some in this O2H2 generator. So we can borrow some from this. First of all, I will just grab out the hydrogen bottle, because that's going to be useful for my jetpack. Again, I will talk about that next time. But these other things I think we'll just leave in there. But just going back into our progression, the O2H2 gen was one of the things that we could unlock. So I think before I grind it down, or borrow some parts from it, we will actually just unlock the things that it unlocks. So we'll go past the functional line, and then we'll weld it back up. And now that has unlocked this group of stuff here. So we've got vents and we've got tanks, so that's cool. And yeah, so now that I've done that, I'm going to grind it back down. It's not so important in this O2 generator on the planet because I can breathe, so I don't need to actually produce oxygen. So there's not really any hurry to actually have access to this. So we'll grind it down and we'll just get those steel tubes out. There we go. And then we can finish this one. So we need some construction components. Let's produce those. We have enough iron for those, and I think we've got most of the motors that we're going to need. So let's try again at building that up. No, still need more construction components. I'll just put some more stone in there so that can hopefully pick up the last few things that we need. Right, try that again. And yeah, so that one there should now be done. Sure enough. And this one here is done. And the back one, we are just missing a large steel tube, but that's not so important. So that's real good. So we've actually got everything we need to sort of get this going. I'll just chuck some stuff back in there. So yeah, so we're just short of 3 large steel tubes. But that's not a problem. We'll be able to do that quite easily once we get to wherever we're going. But this is very much a flyable thing now. So we do just need to do a little bit more setup. And if we jump into here, so we're in the seat at the moment, and we can't actually add any functions into the seat. If I go into the toolbar configuration here, all I have is basically emotes, which for some reason are not coming up right now. But yeah, so that's all I really have access to in this particular seat. What I need to do is I need to go into the remote control. Now, there's different ways that I can access the remote control. I will go into this more detail during a later episode, but just for now, the ways that we can get into it is from another grid somewhere else via the antenna, and we could access it through there. I also have a little antenna that's built into my suit. It's very short range, but if I was standing quite close to it and had my antenna turned on, then I could also access it through my suit. Another way that I can do it is just when I'm actually physically attached or physically sitting in the grid. So we'll go into the seat by pressing the F button, and now I can go into the control menu and I can go into the remote and I can control it from the seat. So now I'm actually in the remote control. Even though I'm looking out through my own eyes, I'm in the remote control. So now if I go to the toolbar configuration by pressing the G key, I can see what things I have access to that I can put on my toolbar. So I'm just going to escape out of that for a second, because instead of putting the individual thrusters on, I want to put things into a group so I can control them. So I'm going to go into the control panel by pressing K, and I'm going to put the thrusters all in a group. So here are the new ones that I built, but the other ones aren't here, and that's because they are hidden. And I can show the hidden blocks, and now I can see them all. So these thrusters here, I'm going to use the shift key to select all 4 of them, and then I'm going to use the control key to select these additional ones. And I'm going to go over here to block group, and I'm going to call them thrusters. Okay, so that's my thrusters group. In fact, I'll call it thrusters group, just so we're clear on it. So I'll save that. So now they're all in a group. And what I might do is these atmospheric ones, I don't think I actually need to show them on the terminal, just like these ones, so I will take them off the terminal. I'm also going to turn them off, just because these atmospheric thrusters are already off as well. So that when we set them up on our toolbar, using the G key, we can just put them all in the group together, and we can do toggle on and off. Okay, so they're all going to do the same thing. If half of them were on and half of them were off, when we toggled them on off, then it would turn the ones that are off on, and it would turn the ones on that were off. So if we can get them all doing the same thing, that's great. I'm going to go back into my control panel. The other thing I'm going to do with those atmospheric thrusters is I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to take them off the toolbar config. So now when we go back to the menu, we've got sort of less blocks cluttering up our toolbar configuration. Okay, so the other thing that I'm going to do that to is I'm going to do that to the landing gears also. I'm going to create a group for landing gears. Landing gears, and then that is I'll also call that group. Just, you don't need to call it group, but just for today. Again, because I've got the group now, I don't actually need them on the terminal, and I don't need them on the toolbar, because they are available to me as a group, so I can do whatever I want. I've put the thrusters in the slot number 2 and the landing gears in slot number 8. That's where I actually normally put them with all my ships, so whatever you feel comfortable with, I would stick with, because yeah, so you can just jump in any ship and you know kind of what they do on autopilot almost. So here I'm going to load up the landing gears as switch lock, and that way it will switch between whatever we do, whether it's locked or unlocked. Okay, so that's pretty much us ready to go. I don't think I need to set anything else up. So we'll just go into the third person view by pressing V, and yeah, we'll turn the thrusters on in a sec. First of all, the landing gears, they do sort of have a color code to them. It's a little bit hard to see, but the blue ones are ready to lock. So when they actually make contact with ground or something solid, they will lock. That is a function that you can turn on. The one at the back there, I don't know if you can quite see it, it's showing green. That means that it is locked. If we didn't have auto lock operational on this, they would show yellow if they were ready to lock. So yeah, the color coding, and red would be turned off, but the color coding of the red, which is off, the green that is sort of doing something, or the yellow that's ready to do something, those are pretty consistent color coding across not just the landing gears but also other blocks as well. So we will cover that off later on as well, but I just wanted to point that out now. So we do have that one landing gear on the port side that is locked. So we're going to have to turn our thrusters on, and we can press the spacebar to go up, but because we're still locked to the ground, we can't go anywhere. So we'll get ready to unlock, and then we're just going to use our mouse and the WASD keys to control this. So ready, steady, unlock, and up we go. We do need to kind of tilt forward a little bit with our main thrusters because they just aren't super powerful, the little thrusters we put in, especially that one that hasn't got the parts. That's not operational. But that's alright, we can sort of use some vector thrust type stuff. So I'm just going to go up to start with. We'll get some altitude. So there is a marker on our HUD which tells us how high we are off the ground, and yeah, so we can sort of use the Alt key with our third person to have a bit of a look around. But I think we should just go over this hill, so I'm going to point in that direction. I'm going to sort of put the nose down and thrust up so that we get that forward momentum, and then sort of go more in that direction now that we've got some speed up. And we'll just head over this hill, and there's a lake right there. That's useful. I did not know that there was a lake there, so that's real cool. And in fact, I recognised this lake straight away. I have been here before. This is the lake that I made the halfway house on my scrapyard scenario. So yeah, I'm very familiar with this lake, and genuinely, I did not know that just over that hill the whole time was this lake. So that's quite neat actually, because I am very familiar with this area and this terrain, and yeah, and I also happen to know that this is the only lake that's actually around for a while, so this is probably going to be our sort of best option. So what we'll do is we'll head down over, I think sort of over here somewhere, and we'll kind of land. But that is where we will call it today. It's been, I think, a successful day. And yeah, next time this is going to be, I think, a good spot to set up our sort of starter base. Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll land over here because there are some dark splotches on the ground there, which they indicate that we have some resources under the ground. Again, we will go more in depth with that next time. But yeah, I think this is going to be a good spot just to land for now. And we'll come down. We've still got the auto lock on our landing gears. I'm just going to tilt back a bit to help arrest my speed, and yeah, because those thrusters do help our drift, the sideways ones, but they're not super awesome at stopping us. So let's just come down here, and you can see that there is some silicon under the ground, and there's also some nickel as well. So this potentially is going to be quite a good spot. There's some magnesium as well. Okay, so this is probably going to be a good spot to build our starter base. So I'll just drop down there, and yeah, we're automatically locked down. I'll just shut my engines down. Don't need to because we're locked, but that's fine. And we'll jump out. So that is that. So yeah, we have some resources underneath us, a nice bit of area. We've got a nice lake to get some ice out of. I happen to know that pretty much all the terrain sort of over that way and over that way is very drivable by with a rover. So that'll probably be something that's in our near future, is to build one of those. But yeah, that's good. It's good to be here, that's for sure, especially somewhere familiar. So yeah, looking forward to that. Okay, so that is indeed where I'm going to pull the pin today. I'm happy with what I achieved. I think I got done what I wanted to achieve and covered off. So there's still heaps more to go through. We've got to talk about inventories and jetpacks and all sorts of things. Plus we've got to build a starter base and then go on to lots more blocks. So there's heaps more to do in this series. Once again, if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down below here. Or yeah, you can touch base over on Discord as well. But that's where I'm going to call it. So thank you everybody for joining me today. I hope you did enjoy today's episode and can join me again next time. And until next time, as always, stay safe out there everybody and have a good one.